Hello there. My name is Nick Bailey. I'm a horticulturalist, garden maker, an author, and a TV presenter. And I've been lucky enough to work in gardening and horticulture for my whole life. It's taken me all over the world. I've worked across the UK and in South Africa, Australia, Spain, and the United States. And what that time has taught me is that the experience of being in a garden is so much more than just the visual. Gardens are full of extraordinary experiences, from sound through to scent and texture. And I'd like to give you a few ideas today of how you can improve those sensual experiences in your garden. The sort of plants that you can put in to really enhance what it feels to be like in an outdoor space. Sounds, of course, are one of the things that are intrinsically in a garden, and I just love walking out into my back garden with the sounds of birds and insects. Water, of course, is also a bonus, so if you don't have a water feature in your garden, whether that's a small urn or a small fountain mounted on the side of a wall, or even a wildlife pond, just having elements like that in the garden adds that wonderful sense of life, movement, and the beautiful sound of water running in the garden. And of course, plants generate fantastic sounds as well. And I think one of the best for me has to be the bamboos. Even in the lightest breeze, they rattle around and create some lovely sounds. Texture is also one of the lovely elements of gardens that I really enjoy. And I can't help when I'm walking around a new garden, or even my own, just stroking and interacting with the plants that are there. Some of them are very nice to touch, some of them are slightly less pleasant, but I think they all give you an interesting experience. One of my absolute favourites is a lovely grass called Stipa tenuissima. It's got a very light, fluffy quality to it. It's almost like hair, super fine strands of grass, which are probably only a millimetre across, but they make a tuft of growth that's probably about 40 to 50 centimetres high. They look beautiful and they feel even better. They blow around in the breeze and you can stroke them, and it's almost like stroking the hair of a camel or another coarse-haired creature, but a lovely thing to interact with in the garden. Now, for something much softer and more delicate, there's a plant I love as well. It's often called lamb's ears or rabbit's ears, and the botanic name is Stachys lanata, and it's got a grey feltiness to its foliage, which is beautiful. It feels fantastic to touch. It also has a very delicate pinky purple flower. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum is a plant which is pretty coarse to touch. It's an extraordinary plant, and you find it in a lot of big stately homes and botanic gardens. And if you've got a big garden at home, you can certainly try growing it yourself. It likes marshy conditions, it likes quite damp conditions, and it's called Gunnera manicata. It's an extraordinary plant. It's been around since the time of the dinosaurs, and the leaves will go up to 6 foot wide. So a single stem emerges from the ground, and then this big, near circular leaf. But the texture on it is extraordinary. I imagine it's a little bit like stroking a dinosaur or a crocodile. It's extraordinarily coarse. It's a bit like sandpaper. It makes an amazing sound as you interact with it. And on an even bigger scale, I think one of the best plants to interact with is Sequoia gigantea, or the giant redwood. Again, it's the sort of plant that you find on big estates and stately homes and in public gardens. It's that truly giant tree that comes from California. And what's special about it is the bark on the outside. It's super soft, it's almost spongy, and I've regularly been to gardens where I've seen teenagers and kids headbutting the tree. Now, of course, I'm not encouraging that, but it is incredibly soft. The bark is squidgy. You can interact with it in the loveliest of ways. Now, for me, one of the absolute highlights of gardening is scent. I absolutely love scent in the garden. In fact, I think I've come close to giving myself migraines from smelling plants too often or breathing in too much pollen, but I do love it. And so I'd like to give a few recommendations of plants that I think are brilliant for providing scent through the year. One of the best for me and one of the easiest is Trachlospermum jasminoides. Now, the name gives it away a little bit, jasminoides. Although it's not a jasmine, it has a delicious jasmine scent. Now, it's a climber, which is very easy to grow. You can grow it on a south-facing wall or a north-facing wall. It'll do equally well in either. It's evergreen and it's self-twining, so it'll make its way up a trellis or a structure very easily. And then it has beautiful white star-shaped flowers that emanate a scent that pass at least 1 or 2 meters away from the plant. So as you walk past, you'll be able to experience that scent. Now, for a really intense scent, something like gardenia is worth growing. Now, you can get a form which will grow inside, which is a tropical plant that's very tender, and it has an almost sort of sickly sweet shop smell to it, really quite special. And then there's an outdoor form as well, called Gardenia Klein's Hardy, and it has a similar sort of scent. The flowers are white, and they have a thick petal to them, and that beautiful, beautiful aroma. Now, citrus plants are also well worth growing. Of course, you get the bonus of the fruit that you can harvest at the end. But the flowers of citrus are one of the best smells in the garden for me, especially as you go into evening. A sweet, delicate aroma. Doesn't smell at all like citrus fruit. It's something quite different and exotic. Citrus are relatively easy to grow, and if you have got a glass house or a windowsill that you can keep the plant on over winter, you can keep a citrus going for many, many years. And of course, one of the most obvious things to grow for fantastic scent are sweet peas. Now, these can be sown in springtime, in March or April, and then by early summer, you can start to harvest them and bring them into the house. And of course, the interesting thing about sweet peas is that if you allow them to just flower freely in the garden, you'll maybe only get about a month's worth of blooms. But if you keep harvesting them, you can be cutting flowers all the way up to the frosts and bringing that fantastic scent into the house. Now, of course, one of the most iconic of all garden scents are roses, and they come in many different forms, many different types of scent. Citrus tone is a particular scent you find on some roses, then myrrh, old rose, and fruity notes as well. And so I'd like to give you 3 of my favourite roses for fantastic scent. The first one is called Desdemona, and it has that classic old rose scent. So it smells a little bit like Turkish Delight. It's really, really delicious. It has a white flower. It cuts very well, so you can bring it inside, and you can smell the plant a couple of meters away from it. So it's one of the most strongly scented of all the roses. Boscobel is another favourite of mine. It has a peachy colour, but the scent is myrrh. And it also has notes of pear and almond to it. It's absolutely delicious and totally intoxicating. And then a rose which has often been voted the nation's favourite is one called Rosa Gertrude Jekyll, and that has the classic old rose scent. Now, it's quite spiny, so you don't want to get too close, but you don't need to. The scent emanates away from the plant fantastically. Now, for me, the ultimate scent in the garden comes at night time, and several plants have evolved to bloom and put their scent out at night in order to attract moths. But of course, we get to experience that fantastic scent. One of the iconic plants that do this is Mirabilis jalapa, or Marvel of Peru. Now, it grows from a big tuber, and you can plant it through spring herbaceous plants. It will then emerge up in midsummer, produce some lush tropical growth, and hundreds of night-scented flowers. It's a really intoxicating scent. Again, it wafts around the garden. In a similar way, Brugmansia swabiolens, or angel's trumpets, does the same sort of thing. It wafts around the garden. The flowers are absolutely huge and pendulous and come in pinks and whites and yellows, and it's got a real scent of the exotic. It whisks me away to far-flung places in the tropics as soon as I get a note of that. But my absolute favourite plant for scent has to be Zaleuzianskia capensis. It's quite a strange sounding name, right? But it's the most lovely, delicate and simple of plants. It has very, very small white flowers which are closed during the day. They almost look like red berries. And then at night they open up and release the most incredible scent. It's a mix of Parma violet and vanilla. It's absolutely delicious, and it's very easy to grow from seed every year. I hope I've been able to give you a bit of inspiration with some of the plants I've suggested for you to try out in your gardens. I think they're a great way of celebrating all the fantastic, multifaceted aspects of growing in the garden.